All right, I had an interesting conversation this morning with a client, a previous client that we did a CPP on their house, comprehensive planning process, and uh, they made what I think is really the right call, which is that that house is not their forever house, and they want to find their forever house and fix it up to make it fully theirs and go from there. So they found this house. It's on the market right now, and it's a competitive market. So they're like, we want to understand, do we want to make an offer on this? And they wanted to understand um, if this is a good electrification candidate or not. From their realtor saying that's somewhere between $75 and $100 a month for the gas bill. So we had to back into that, and I wanted to show you how to do that. So for starters, I want to show you something that I'm not liking right now. So this is the EDS load calc tool. This is actually the auditor tool. And so the only thing I change in here is I change their window area on the sides of the house to be 100 square feet. So it's 10 foot by 10 foot with their windows. That's, a little bit extra for what it is. But aside from that, I left everything the same as to what came loaded. And this number used to be pretty decent. Like I'd plug it in, be like, all right, that's in the ballpark. And then I'd go true everything up and make sure, and I'd get it down to where you want it. But now this load is nuts. This house should show a load of an operating load of under 100,000. And now it's showing 150. And you know it's wrong. And we'll get to this in a little bit because it's saying that it's costing $2,000 a year to heat this house in the winter at 50 cents per therm. That's insane. Nothing in this era of this size is going to cost that much to heat. I very seldom see gas costs over $1,000 a year. So we know that this is like twice as heavy as it should be. So I saw this and it's like, all right, now I have to find another way to do it. So I want to show you an alternate way to back into this. So realtor said $75 to $100 a month. So let's see what happens if you want to back into the usage per year with $75 a month. So $75 a month times 12, so there's the year, $900 for the year. It costs $30 a month for the gas meter fee here right now. So that's $360 a year. So 900 minus 360 is $540 of gas. So you take out the meter fee, that's what you're paying for gas. Decent ballpark idea around here is $120 a year for water heat. Maybe it's a little bit more, but decent guess. I don't know if this house is occupied or not, so I'm also taking a guess on that. I don't have the information that I want, but doing what I can with that. So 540 minus 120 for water heater, we're using $420 a year worth of gas. Now if we take it at $100 a month, same basic deal, $1,200 a year minus 360 is $840. And then take out the $120 a year worth of water heat, we're at $720 a year worth of gas. Now when you take the meter fee out, because we already did, we're paying here in the ballpark of 50 cents a therm. Maybe it's 45 cents, maybe it's 55 cents, whatever. We're somewhere in the ballpark. So this is where if you're looking at energy bills, you'll be able to tell if something smells right. So $840 in a house, like it says it's 4,000 square feet, but it's actually 2,500. So $840 is, that'd be pretty good usage. $1,420, that sounds closer to where I think this house would probably be, but it should have hopefully been insulated to some degree. And just so you have a rule of thumb, it's going to depend on your climate, but here, if a house is using a therm per square foot per year, so it's a 2,500 square foot house, if it was using 2,500 therms, that is terrible. So you know you have a really big pig. They're okay if they're around half, like that's not great, but that's okay. And if they use a quarter therm per square foot per year, so if it's 2,500 square feet, 1,250, I'd use like 600 therms a year, that'd be really good. That tells you that's an efficient house. So these are some rules of thumb, and you'll need to figure out what it is for your area. So we're between 840 and 1,420 therms. Well, that's more accurate than that sounds like it is. So we could be anywhere between 600 and 2,000 really depending on a bunch of factors. But we're going to true to $420 and $720 a year for gas at 50 cents a therm. So RightSoft has this nice little program through Carrier that you can back into loads. So I already have these loads correct here, but you put in the zip code, 50 cents a therm. I mean, you can also select propane if you want. And then you put in your electric costs. And it goes and it figures all this stuff out. All right, and so the 38,000, I moved that around until I got the fuel cost. I wanted 420 on the low side. So we're at 420 for annual fuel cost at 50 cents. So we're in the 840 therm range. And then I put that in. So this is the base system. And in the listing, the last photo here has the system. So gas furnace looks like a big one, judging by the footprint, since it's only a few years old. So that's 100 or 120,000 BTUs, and probably a 4-ton air conditioner on top. That's a big coil. That's not a 3-ton. It's either a 4 or a 5. So I can just tell visually, a decent idea of what's there. And we know that it's at least 90% because it has this, the plastic float. So I put in 13 SEER air conditioner, which is the common one here for new stuff, and HVAC20, and then trued down to 420. So that's where the house is now. So, or it could be anyway. That's the $75 a month bill. And then I gave them a hybrid. So a VNA 8, that's the 5-stage heat pump. It's one step down from the green speed. The MN7 is the fully modulating furnace. So I gave them a really nice hybrid here. And then I also need to select for heating. All of these. And then you can see what happens to operating costs. So running the hybrid, when I select for heating, so see right here, fuel costs, it's using basically no gas, $14 a year. And if I deselect that, it uses $150 worth of gas. So the heat pump can carry a lot of it. And you can see it switches from a 2-ton here to the 24. And then when I select for heating, so it leans on the heat pump, it selects a 3-ton, the 37, that's the cold climate version of the 3-ton. And then the next one, these are both straight heat pumps, where this is a hybrid. So the VNA 0 is the green speed. There's actually a new green speed, the VNA 4. Oddly enough, it modeled worse, so I use this one. And then the VNA 8 is again the same 5-stage here, but this is a heat pump only system rather than having a furnace. And so the VNA 0 is $260 a year more to run. Interestingly, the hybrid's a decent chunk more. And then the 5-stage on its own is $500 a year more to operate, according to this. So I true to this here, and then you put your systems in, and you get an idea of where things might land. But remember, if we get rid of the gas meter, that saves $360 a year, which means that this system would actually be less expensive to operate than what they have now. So they can move to a heat pump. Now, we have to play a game, but if they're going to find a house, gut it, and put everything in, which is what we ended up suggesting that they do. I don't know what they'll do, but that's what we suggested. That house would be less expensive to operate as a 3-ton house than it would be with a furnace and an air conditioner. So kind of cool. So let's, instead of going for the 420, let's go for 720. So you can just play around with this. So you can try 60,000 just to see where it is. Ooh, we got the devil's number there. So that's not quite high enough. So let's try 65,000 if we're going for 720. Look, there we are. And I already knew this answer. But we do need to change the cooling because it's usually about twice the heating to the cooling. So let's change that to get a decent ballpark. And then it'll go rerun the model. And again, I'm going to lean on the heat pump. Seems odd that it needs to do that, but there you go. And so now we went from $700 a year up to $1,100 a year for total heating and cooling costs. The hybrid is again more expensive. And remember, $65,000. This is no longer a great heat pump candidate. Like, you have to expect this to be expensive to run. And then oddly enough, it's showing a 3-ton, even though it really should be a 5. But we find these numbers are somewhere in the ballpark. They're kind of close to what actually happens. But both heat pumps are going to cost about $1,000 a year more than just a standard furnace setup. So this is why it's important to get the load down on a house, because you get the load down and you get rid of the gas meter, the operating costs are pretty stinking close. And we find that happens in reality. So that's how we backed in. You play around with the heating to make your fuel cost get into the ballpark that you're looking for, and then you can try out different systems and see what happens if you run a hybrid or a heat pump. So that's how we're doing that. And like, you can change other stuff here. Like, what if we happen to have really cheap electricity and we're at 8 cents? So down the road, I could see solar getting into this ballpark. So now it's just marginally more expensive, and this is in a house with a high load. Now, if we change this back to the 38,000, so we have a house that has a reasonable load, basically a 3-ton house. Wait for it all to populate. Select heating. It'll rerun the numbers. Look at this. So if you can get to cheap electricity, it's actually cheaper to run the heat pump than it is running a furnace, even with pretty cheap gas. 50-cent therms is pretty cheap. So you have to put everything in numbers-wise to see where things land, because it's going to vary on where you are in the country, how harsh your climate is, what your utility rates are. But you can back into, if you get the the realtor, 75 to 100 a month for the gas. Like, that is not accurate enough. But you can at least get an idea of where you are. So we're somewhere in the 40,000 to 65,000 BTU load. That's likely, unlike old EDS over here, say at 150, which is insane. This is not a 2-furnace house. I hope this gets fixed, but it's had several issues in the last year, and I'm quite frustrated. But anyway, you can play with this. We'll go and change that back to where it is. And so this helps you get an idea of what it's going to cost to heat and cool this house, and you get a decent load calc on it. So hopefully this is helpful to show you how to back into a load calculation. So whenever you're doing one, this doesn't take all that long to figure out. So it's not a bad step to do. So if you're a little nervous about a load, put it in here, see what it comes up with. So hopefully that's helpful, and have just a wonderful day. I hope you learned something. Talk to you later. I'm Nate Adams. Bye-bye.